Welcome to Within Reason. Bob Kerrigan, your host. I'll be here tonight until 9, taking your calls as they come in. We've got a big show, got lots of interesting things to talk about. Let me first go to a caller who asked about Social Security for the Mexicans, and the sky was falling down and other terrible things were resulting. What was proposed, has not been approved by Congress yet, is a bilateral agreement with Mexico similar to about 16 other nations in which there's reciprocity for Social Security and a system that balances Social Security where they're not, workers are not having Social Security withdrawn twice, where workers work half in one country, half in another, not eligible in either country. Just it's a policy, a treaty of sorts with the Social Security administrations of various countries. It has been proposed with Mexico. My research indicates it has not passed the Congress. The last bilateral agreement on Social Security was with Japan. And letter to President Clinton signed by Carl Levin, Tom Daschle, and John Kerry, and others. Saddam Hussein has been engaged in the development of weapons of mass destruction technology, which is a threat to countries in the region, and he has made a mockery of the weapons inspection process. And that was also signed by Nancy Pelosi. The Democrats. We begin with a common belief that Saddam Hussein is a tyrant and a threat to the peace and stability of the region. He has ignored the mandate of the United Nations, is building weapons of mass destruction and the means of delivering them. Al Gore, we know that he has stored secret supplies of biological and chemical weapons throughout his country. All of those statements were made following this letter I just read you in 1998. I have found virtually nothing in 1999, and as everybody knows, the broad inspection process in Iraq with UN inspectors resolved almost all of these objections, if not all of these objections, about access to and inspections in Iraq. The President said on 60 Minutes when he was interviewed on a softball interview that he really didn't care if the majority agreed or disagreed. He was not going to be controlled by public opinion, and et cetera, et cetera. And yet, when you look at many of his policies, in Florida we can look at the Cuban policy, for example, he is controlled by a handful of Cubans in South Florida that control blocks of votes. And he directly acts and conducts himself and makes decisions that are contrary to the best interests of the United States. There's no question about that. It's in the interest of a handful of Cubans that control about 500,000 votes in South Florida. So to protest on 60 Minutes that he was a man of great commitment and resolve and wasn't swayed by public opinion is utter nonsense.
Do we screen these Cubans who flood our shores and we welcome with open arms?
Wet foot, dry foot. Once they hit the shore, the right-wing Cubans in Miami register them up as Republicans, and it's been a sweetheart deal. That's how Jeb Bush got elected governor of Florida. That's how the President of the United States was elected. It's a huge block of votes. They completely control the foreign policy with Cuba. It's an utter absurdity. We can wheel and deal with China, where they put people in prison for any kind of protest. That we're all making money in China, and a little island with 11 million people. We've shut that island off from the world many times, practically starved the Cuban people to death in 1992 and 93 when the Soviet bloc collapsed. It is our single national disgrace in foreign policy before Iraq, and it had been ongoing, and the Bushes have been right in the middle of it for one reason only. They get a block of about 500,000 votes. That's it. Arriving last Monday morning in millions of inboxes, hinted strongly at where the Commander-in-Chief stands on the name issue, to wit, quote, "The Democrat Party has a clear record when it comes to taxes," and "Nothing threatens our hard-won reforms and economic prosperity more than a Democrat victory this November," and "The difference is clear. If you want the government in your pocket, vote Democrat." The government in your pocket. I mean, these guys have stuffed their pockets with everything they can get their hands on. You know, when they leave, it'll be like locusts coming out of the White House. There won't be any bulbs screwed into the ceiling, okay? The carpet will be gone. The carpet tax will be used, everything. The President of the United States needs to get off of calling his opposition the Democrat Party. He needs to grow up and quit acting like a cowboy and act like a statesman. And that's why the right-wingers are all doing it now. Rush Limbaugh's doing it. They think it's really cute, okay? They disparage the name of the party of their opposition. Now, how does that promote civility? How does that promote mutual respect and admiration, if you will, for your adversary's position, at least to listen to it, maybe not to, fully adopt it or incorporate it or whatever, but to listen to it, reflect on it, and respond to it. How does this promote civility? How does it promote decency? How does it eliminate corruption and overreaching? Well, the answer is it promotes all of the bad you can imagine. And it starts with the President of the United States, who does it intentionally. We need ethics reform, and we need it in the worst way. And my point to the Democrats is you had the opening with Abramoff. You had a great opening in which you could have led on ethics reform, and they didn't do it. And the reason they didn't do it is they've all got skeletons in the closet, every single one of them. And the young people that are coming, young men and women that are coming into the Congress now, they're the ones who are going to have to change it. But it's going to be tough. And it's terrible when you think about it. It's just terrible. The Democrats had a wonderful opening, had a great opening to take the lead on ethics reform. But you can't follow a guy like Harry Reid. You know, why in the world the Democrats have elected him just mystifies me. You know, Nevada, we're looking for a state where we can dump nuclear waste. Why don't they pick somebody from a swing state, Ohio, or Bill Nelson in Florida, someplace where, it's going to make a difference? In this country, we don't allow the military to interfere with private citizens. Now, for all you people who can hardly wait to stand up and clap for the military, I too applaud our military in many ways, but not to start delving into financial records at local banks. That's what the Pentagon is doing. Now, we don't need the military to do that. We have the FBI, and they're good. They're very, very good. But just like when they were down there at Abu Ghraib, and the FBI said, hell no, this is wrong, this violates the Geneva Convention, we don't like what we're seeing, and they had the guts to object to it, which they did, and history will reward them greatly for that. The military doesn't like them. They don't like them to get in the way of what they want to do. So, what we have now, under an obscure provision of the Homeland Security regulations and laws, allows the Pentagon to get access to private citizens' financial records. The Battle of Iraq is one victory in a war of terror that began on September 11, 2001. See how clever that is? It's a battle based on the war of terror that started in 2001. A war of terror. It doesn't say an attack by terrorists, it's a war of terror on terror. And still goes on. That terrible morning, 19 evil men, the shock troops of a hateful ideology, gave America and the civilized world a glimpse of their ambitions. They imagined, in the words of one terrorist, that September the 11th would be the beginning of the end of America by seeking to turn our cities into killing fields. Terrorists and their allies, you see how he says that? Terrorists and their allies. Allies of terrorists? What is he talking about? I mean, this is all really very, very cleverly done. This is Within Reason. Thank you for joining me. Program rebroadcast Monday night at 10. We'll see you next Wednesday at this time, 8 o'clock.